All right, we're going to get started today. Welcome back to or my, I guess it's a collective R. Anyone out there listening to this, we are experiencing my 12 episode original series, The Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy. Today is Thursday, May 7th, around 11 a.m. And yesterday got kind of dark. We're talking about doppelganger demons taking the form of pre-teenage kids in the suburbs and all kinds of gruesome murder scenes, kids killing their parents, but it's really this demon in disguise, this weird Russian connection, like the Russian Revolution. Maybe I was trying to put some political sprinkles in there as well. I mentioned The Manchurian Candidate, which was a freaky movie for me when I was growing up. Manchurian Candidate, I saw the one with Denzel, but I think there's one with Frank Sinatra too. So today we're going a different direction, and I think I did this purposefully. This is a comedy, very absurd, musical. I wrote this pretty early on. It might have been the first one I wrote. It's called Man and Deer, and it's hard to explain what this is. It's a Family Guy episode. It's a South Park episode. It's maybe Always Sunny in Philadelphia because they do musicals as well. So there is this influence there because those are the three shows that really make me laugh out loud is South Park, Family Guy, and Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're not the only ones, but those are the ones I return to and rewatch, along with the Todd Margaret with David Cross. I forget the full title of the show, but he's like this guy, salesman who goes to England. The Misadventures of Todd Margaret or something like that. I could go back and watch that. Thunder Gun or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's a good show. If you never watched it, I think it was on IFC or something. Maybe two seasons with David Cross and some other funny people. And yeah, so this is supposed to be as funny as I can get. And I don't consider myself that funny, really. I don't know if people think I'm just funny looking, maybe, or people laugh at me and not with me, which is fine. I like self-deprecation. That's fine. Roundy Dangerfield type of humor. No respect. I watched Back to School maybe a year ago. It still kind of holds up. I wanted to remake that movie, actually. That's why I watched it. I wanted to remake Back to School with like Lewis Black or someone like that, and dealing with the different political environment of woke politics and all the stuff that was happening over the last, I don't know, decade or so. The divide in America that's kind of weird now. Back to School in the 80s wasn't really dealing with that, but there was some of that. There was, what's his name? The other comedian's in it, and he plays a teacher, and he's Kinison, right? Sam Kinison, and he's going through like the Vietnam War as he's teaching it, like a madman. So yeah, I actually wanted to remake that movie because I appreciate 80s humor. I really do. That's a great movie. I think even Kurt Vonnegut's in it. Am I wrong about that? Towards the end of Back to School, I think Rodney Dangerfield's character hires Kurt Vonnegut to teach his son like English or some shit like that. Last night I was in bed. After I make these recordings, I listen to them the same night to see how stupid I sound. And I kind of enjoyed the one yesterday. I think I do ramble, and I'm trying to improve just the way I deliver sentences in a more smooth fashion. I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight, though. To improve, to just make this listening experience better for anyone who ever listens to this. Because what I said at the end of the part 2 yesterday is really the reason I'm doing this. Maybe I just figured that out. Like, hey, people, I want to make this stuff. Who wants to work with me in these stories? Who wants to develop these stories into something that can be shared to a global audience through streaming sites and whatever else? And the opportunities there. I remember listening to, during COVID 2020, I would listen to the Always Sunny podcast like every week, every Monday. And I think that's when I learned of that when they were first coming up with the show development, before they even went to FX, they had to make a pilot themselves, maybe using their cell phones. And I think it was Glenn Howerton saying that, like, you can't whine today. You can make your own art and develop your own type of business, or in their case, a television show that lasted for 18 seasons or whatever. I don't know if it's going to come back again. And I feel like they could come back and still make funny episodes because they're just really funny people. They have a good outlook on things, and they've kind of been all over the place throughout their 17 seasons, whatever it is. So you have to take advantage of the tools at your disposal. And right now, this is what I can do. I can share these things like a podcast. That's how I really think about this. I can keep writing, and I've been doing that for the last year. I've never really stopped. I've never taken my foot off the pedal. Maybe I slow down a little from time to time because it's hard to keep going. If you have the ideas and the ability to write things down, and my understanding or my command of the English language is not like where a writer should be. I understand that. I don't have the best vocabulary. I have to go look up synonyms and whatever similar words all the time because I use the same words over and over again. And I'm trying to improve that through something like this practice that I'm doing every day. I was actually trying to learn Spanish about a month ago, but I'm not giving up on it. It's just not something that's in my mental periphery right now that I'm motivated to do, and I don't feel like forcing myself to do it. So I'm taking a break from it, which is bad with a language because you have to practice it every day or you're going to have to start all over again almost. But hopefully I move to the Southwest, and maybe if I'm immersed in more of that Mexican culture or a lot of Spanish speaking, I'm going to have to force myself to learn it if I move to parts of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and we'll see how that turns out. Even parts of California. And yeah, I said yesterday or the day before, my favorite food is Mexican food. I don't eat meat, so it's just, I don't really eat bread either, but maybe I'll start eating like tortilla bread again or whatever they make burritos out of. I just love a good burrito. I don't think it gets better than a good burrito, whether it's tofu in there or just beans. That's all you really need to make me happy. And the Mexican seasonings, a little bit of heat. I really think Mexican food, I could live off that the rest of my life pretty much and be pretty happy. I've heard people say Ethiopian food. Ethiopian cuisine is like this crazy mixture of spices, but I've never experienced that. But I don't know. Maybe that's calling me to the West Coast as well. I'm sure Southern California has amazing Mexican food. New Mexico, maybe even Arizona, and parts of Texas, I'm sure, has amazing Mexican food. Alright, so how did this story develop? What am I getting people into today? I've taken people through the Wild West. I've taken people through Chicago with Lori's story in the winter in Chicago, and just the freezing cold that you could probably feel as I was reading that story. Yesterday, we went to the suburbs of America in a small town, and we followed this demonic ice cream man. Where are we going today? Well, today is an animation, so pretend this is like you're entering Roger Rabbit universe and becoming an animated entity. I made this an animation because I said it's a Family Guy, South Park inspired story that's Hunter S. Thompson. Maybe there's a bit of that influence as well. There's some drug stuff. But my main goal today is to hopefully make people laugh. Some of this stuff gets serious because comedy is kind of the same as tragedy, right? Isn't there some quote about that? There's not comedy can be a tragedy can be a comedy. They're kind of interrelated like that. Because I guess people kind of got brainwashed, and I have a song. I wrote 5 songs for this. One of them is called Brainwashed by Romantic Comedies. And maybe people have, through the 80s, romantic comedies were huge. Even movies like Three Men and a Little Baby and Three Men and a Baby, is that what it was called? The stupid 80s comedies, Weekend at Bernie's, which I'm calling them stupid, but I watched them all multiple times. Whenever we went to like Blockbuster Video in the early 90s, I would always look for stupid 80s comedies because I knew, I don't know, as an 8-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid, I was gonna love this shit. Stupid 80s comedies remember that movie Pure Luck? That's a good example. Maybe that's the 90s though. Pure Luck with Martin Short and Danny Glover. That's a great comedy. I watched it a couple of years ago. It still holds up. The one with Michael J. Fox where he's like, chicka-chicka, which Always Sunny made fun of. The famous Always Sunny episode with Charlie and Mac in the mailroom, Pepe Sylvia, Carol. All those people are real, Charlie. Yeah. So, yeah, I think people appreciate the 80s cheese. I write an essay every month, something else. I put a goal for myself. This month's essay is supposed to be an exploration of the cheesy music and movies of the 1980s throughout that decade. And I haven't worked on it yet, but I'm going to have to start rewatching some of those movies, Howard the Duck, and just ridiculous concepts like that. I think Three Men and a Baby is a good example because that was actually like held up as like a classic for a while. Everyone, at least in my circle of family and friends, I don't know, people always seem to watch that fucking movie. Maybe because the actors were so famous. Who was it? Like Gutenberg and that other dude with the mustache. Magnum PI. Whatever the fuck your name is. Sorry, buddy. I forget your name. And some other guy. Alright, I feel bad. I should know that name. It's kind of sad when you know an actor by their character name. Like, always, I forget Jason Alexander's name, so I would just say George from Seinfeld or Costanza instead of saying Jason Alexander. So I feel kind of like I'm disrespecting these people. 3 Men and a Baby. 3 Men and a Bagel? What's that about? 3 Men and a Baby. 1987 film. Ted Danson, Steve Gutenberg, and Tom Selleck. Yeah, I couldn't think of their names. Directed by Leonard Nimoy. Alright, I never knew that. But it's a pretty... Well, it was the biggest American box office hit in 1987. See, I knew it. I remember it kind of as a kid, and everyone was talking about this stupid movie. Not so stupid, but it is pretty stupid. Three single men in New York City find a baby, and and this leads to comedic chaos as they try to care for her while also dealing with drug dealers. Yeah, I don't remember this at all. I'm gonna have to rewatch this because I think that's a good basis for the essay I'm gonna explore about 80s cheese, 80s pop music. So much cheese there, but I think the movies highlight it better, to be honest. Because I can listen to Madonna from the 80s and I think it's really good, enjoyable. Um, and some people might hear that today and think it's just total crap, total cheesy bass lines and these synthesizers and drum machines and weird production. Or maybe like Phil Collins in the 80s when he kind of did his solo thing sometimes. Which he's a great songwriter. I respect that, but sometimes it could get a little cheesy as well. With I can't dance, I can't walk. Only thing about me. I just remember that video as a kid. That could have been Genesis, not Phil Collins. I don't know. Maybe the band got back together. But yeah, I'm going to explore more 80s cheese, so look out for that. That's going to blow people's minds, as especially if you didn't grow up in the 80s. People like me will be like, it's another nostalgia essay about 80s movies. Wow, how original. But people who did not grow up in the 80s and didn't see Three Men and a Baby or Weekend at Bernie's part 1 or 2, because I think they made 2 of them. Yeah, it might be hysterical for people today who are in their teenage years right now to just have 80s nights and watch 80s movies. It's like going into this totally different version of reality. Look how people looked in the 80s and how they dressed. It's a mind fuck that I don't think will come around again. Maybe like the hippie style always hangs around. The punk style, the punk aesthetic will always hang around to some degree. Heavy metal, maybe a little. Maybe not so much the hair metal period. You don't see many people looking like Bon Jovi these days with long mullet hair. Or even hockey players don't do that anymore. I remember hockey players in that maybe even in the 90s would have these huge mullets going on. Like Billy Ray Cyrus shit. So yeah, I don't think the 80s will ever come back around. People won't dress like that ever again. So it's such a weird time period. I just try to think of my own self, but I was a kid, and as a kid you don't care about style. You just wear whatever the fuck your parents buy for you. At least that's how it was for me. But yeah, there's a bit of that in this story. I'm going to get into it now. Excuse me. I'm going to get into it now and kind of prepare. I just want to prepare people for what this story is going to be like. As a genre, I would say this is just an absurd animation, part musical, part comedy, maybe a bit dark at times. And it's a pretty basic storyline, linear type of narrative. But during some of these scenes, it goes into song. We're moving maybe every 10 pages or so. I put an original song in the screenplay with the lyrics and how it would be performed because I didn't know how else to do it. How do you write a musical or a stage play like in Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I'm sure that had some reference to that when Charlie writes the Nightman Cometh. That's one of the best episodes. I was probably inspired by that, but I don't know. I didn't know how to actually write a screenplay that had music in it, so I just kind of did it my own way. I had a couple people read it and give me some notes on it years ago when I first shared it with people, and people kind of had random comments like, wow, this is one of the strangest screenplays I've read in terms of the subject matter and the structure of it. So maybe by me reading it aloud, it would help clear things up and give people a more polished vision of what I'm going for. If you know Family Guy, then I don't think it's that hard to, or South Park even, because they do a lot of musical episodes from time to time. And I think that's what I'm going for. And to be honest, everyone knows that. Like, I can say that pretty confidently. 10 people on the street, maybe 7 out of 10 would at least know what South Park is or Family Guy, because they got, very popular. South Park is up there in terms of longevity with The Simpsons. They're probably approaching that territory. And speaking of The Simpsons, yeah, I should also mention them because The Simpsons, The Simpsons did it. Like that South Park episode said, Simpsons did it. You have to give credit to people who were the pioneers of that. The Simpsons were considered radical when I was a kid, in my neighborhood at least. In my Catholic school upbringing, Bart Simpson was like a radical character. Should kids be exposed to Bart Simpson? Radical man. Don't have a cow, man. Like he was considered in my upbringing as a kid. Yeah, I think I was allowed to watch it. The Simpsons, it wasn't like a forbidden territory. It wasn't forbidden territory, excuse me. But I feel like, yeah, in some respect, maybe they did it for publicity, that they made it look like The Simpsons was this new radical experience. It's going to change American society. And people always comment on YouTube videos how The Simpsons are predicting the future about Trump, because they had an episode with Trump and other shit. So, yeah, it gets kind of interesting. Maybe the writers of The Simpsons invented a time machine during one of their seasons, and now they put little messages in their show to freak people out. So, yeah, I should give tribute to The Simpsons as well. Sometimes I forget about it because I grew up with it coming home from school. For a while, from high school, it would be Simpsons after school, Seinfeld, and that would be my diet of like entertainment. As I was getting more in my teenage years, those were the shows I would watch after school every day. There would be a Simpsons episode, like right before dinner, or Seinfeld. It was probably in the rerun stages at that point. So, yeah, it was a good experience. I'm happy to have some of my sense of humor develop from shows like that because they're still rewatchable. I would be proud to show The Simpsons if I had children. The next generation would probably still appreciate it. And maybe there's some things that they did in the 90s that isn't looked upon as funny anymore because now there's this crazy political correctness and new rules for how to be a successful artist. And I'm not going to get into censorship again. I'll just say about censorship that, I've talked to, there's certain subjects that I always talk about, that I always just focus on free speech, censorship, especially when it comes to artistic creation. There should be very little or no boundaries on comedy, on other methods of artistic expression. There should be almost no censorship. And it's hard to make a statement like that because what do you do if somebody puts on a Nazi uniform and plays their shows dressed in Nazi gear and they just spewing all these hateful comments on stage? Is that protected by free speech? Well, according to even the ACLU in the past would allow KKK and neo-Nazi groups to march down the street if they're having a peaceful protest or a peaceful rally. The ACLU would stand up for their right to do that. So it's complicated, man. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see people doing crazy shit like that. Sometimes they don't even really they're not even doing it to promote Nazi values, whatever the fuck that means. They're doing it just for radical artistic expression. Should that be protected by the Constitution, the First Amendment? It's very difficult because of what everyone always repeats, that cliche about screaming fire in a movie theater, that it's going to cause a chaotic experience for people and maybe cause injury and violence. And yeah, I think that's why in Germany they kind of banned all Nazi symbols, uh, basically to keep that element out of their, I guess because they don't want to remind people of that shit. And so it doesn't boil up again in people's minds. Who wants to think about that fucking bullshit from World War II and shit? So the First Amendment's complicated when you talk about artistic expression, um, because yeah, if you start banning one thing, then other things that you support might get banned, depending on the people in power, depending on legal cases and court rulings. It's hard to be consistent with stuff like that, but that's for the Supreme Court to talk about. My opinions are stupid. I just try to lay out the basis of it, of what swirls around in my head. But again, yeah, you want to learn about constitutional law, go to fucking school. They'll have more nuanced debates about this stuff. I went through my public library a couple months ago in the hopes of learning more about the Constitution. And it was all right. It was like a free seminar in Philadelphia. There's the Constitution Center. So it was a professor from there or something connected to that. And it was okay. They went through a lot of the foundational principles of the Constitution, why a lot of these things developed in terms of the economic system in colonial America, and why the First Amendment was so important. I think it did go into a lot of censorship concerns and other, even relevant to today's culture, with ICE taking people in without a warrant and warrantless searches or seizures. That's a part of the Constitution, I think, somewhere. I'm not as educated to say that's what amendment that is or whatever, but I am interested in it. The Constitution is a young document in terms of our country, the United States. We're a very, very young country. So it's interesting to see how everything evolves from 200 years ago. And yeah, I'm a fan of American history. In school, I always liked the Revolutionary War stuff. So I was a sucker for like the Mel Gibson Patriot movie, which I'm sure is kind of historically inaccurate, but it's a fucking movie. I'm sure Braveheart has some stuff in there too that's not exactly how it happened, William Wallace. But yeah, I always like learning about American Revolution, expansion to the West and all that shit. And yeah, I'm not like a manifest destiny guy. I think colonialism didn't have to be like that, but it brought about genocide. But learning about, because I mentioned the Clash of Civilizations the other day. That is the example I guess he was using. I forget the author's name, Fukuyama or something. I read this in college, so there's nothing in the book I would remember intelligently. But his argument was that civilizations are going to clash because he's probably pointing back to that. Colonialism set the stage for these Western powers to take over other people's land and just claim dominance because of manifest destiny, which, yeah, that's a ridiculous, in my mind, that's a ridiculous concept. God gave us the right to just do whatever the fuck we want. I'm sure I'm not really interpreting it correctly, but that's kind of what I think of it as. It's just using religion as a crutch because you either fear these other people or you just want to take over their resources and land. Well, God told us it's okay. Or, yeah, semantics like that gets on my nerves. I don't think, I think people today are way past that. So I don't feel like that type of mentality really exists anymore, but at least I hope it isn't a part of the mainstream ideology. But there are voices out there that still kind of echo those same aspects of colonialism that were very, well, very evil when you're actually killing off the entire Aztec population, the Mayans, um, regardless of their culture, if they were doing human sacrifices. Like, is that like a justification? Well, hey man, well, would you rather live with the Aztecs? Go up that temple and they'll take your heart out, sacrifice you to the sun god. I don't know how to answer these questions. Um, but I just remember as a kid really being interested in all that stuff because you're learning in Catholic school about religion, all these rules. English is all about rules and grammar, and then you get to history class, and you kind of can escape all these explorers that ventured to find new trade routes and like I was addicted to the game Civilization. That's how big of a nerd I was for a while. There's a Sid Meier Civilization game where you could pick a culture and play as that and build your reign and almost like a simulation of how civilization started pretty much. And I was addicted to that game. I would play it for like days and days. And that's just how my nerdiness is. I was always attracted to that subject in school, though, about not just American history, but maybe more so that the revolutionary spirit of the underdog story of America versus their motherland. It's such a cool exploration of, well, I would say ancestry, but I don't have actual ancestors from, you know, settlers and first generation. My parents came from Sicily. So I can't trace my heritage to anything from the Revolutionary War or the Civil War. Maybe that's why I'm also interested in it, because I'm kind of lacking people who have generations of, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 deep that can trace back to the Civil War or even the Revolutionary War or the Mayflower. There's still people in America that can trace their heritage back to 500 years ago, whatever it is. And yeah, that's pretty cool. You probably, growing up, you're so immersed in that revolutionary spirit, it probably brings you up in a different mentality. Or people who moved out west, the pioneers, and if you can trace your culture back to your great grandfathers, were the pioneers on the Oregon Trail, and they survived and built this. That's a pretty cool family heritage if you have that. That's probably why I was interested in that, because I don't really know it as a personal primary source. I have to learn it through history books. All right, I'm talking too long. Let me get to this story. I'm talking all these serious topics. I don't know why, because I'm about to read the most ridiculous animated screenplay, and it is how long? 54 pages. So it's a little bit longer than the other ones. All right, we're going to start this. I'll try to get through 25 pages at a time and see how that goes. We're going to fade in, of course. I don't even know if you have to write that anymore. Anyone who writes screenplays, do you still have to write fade in at the top of the first page? I feel like it's kind of just understood, but I don't know. The grammar, screenplay, Nazis. You didn't write fade in? Well, I'm not reading this. How am I supposed to know you're fading into this story if you don't write it on the top of the page? We're fading in to the Atlantic City Expressway as a man, and his name in this story is just Man. Man in his 30s, kind of strung out, bloodshot eyes. He drives a rundown Monte Carlo through the full wrath of a blizzard on the Atlantic City Expressway. He passes 3 road signs in a row, leaving Atlantic City. Come back soon, suckers. The last, 4th sign has a picture of a grinning devil who's giving the middle finger. So he's driving pretty fast, and remember, this is an animation, so you can do this however you want, but I picture it, he's driving and he's passing these signs kind of in a row, leaving Atlantic City, come back soon, suckers, and then the grinning devil figure who's giving the middle finger. The man squints towards the road ahead through very poor visibility as his headlights shine onto deer, male, standing upright with different sized antlers, wearing jeans, jean jacket, a t-shirt, and a scruffy beard. The deer, well, his name in this is Deer. So the 2 characters in this movie is Man and Deer, hence the title of this, which is Man and Deer. The deer is hitchhiking while smoking a cigarette, and he's covered in snow and ice. Man's car hits some black ice as he loses control, panics, then slams the brakes, stopping inches from Deer. Cars behind are swerving now away from his car as there's quickly forming a massive domino effect of wreckage as bodies fly out through windows and windshields and litter the snow-covered road. The man pays the carnage no mind as he rolls down his window and eyes Deer. Man, where you headed? Deer tosses his cigarette into the snow. Deer, not quite sure. Man, me too. Deer nods in thanks and finally gets in just as another car crashes into the pileup of wreckage in the background, and 2 screaming sharks crash through the front windshield. Shark 1, leave the ocean for the winter. What a novel idea. Shark 2, you weren't complaining earlier, Harold. So yeah, maybe there's a bit of the Far Side humor in this. When I was a kid, I remember having the Far Side book. I forget the artist's name. The Far Side. And I like that humor a lot. Just weird, kind of simple sketching. Not simple, but I like that brand of humor a lot. The Far Side. There's probably a bit of this in this story. And before the shark can finish his thought, a massive explosion launches car fragments all over the road. Moments later, inside Man's car, he's driving down the highway, oblivious to the wreckage behind him. Man, I'm Man. Deer. Deer. Jittery, the man chugs an energy drink, struggling to keep his eyes open. Deer. Are you okay driving? The deer stares towards the man with his bugged out red eyes. So the man's he's kind of fucked up. Maybe he's a little drugged out. Man, 3-day poker binge. Deer, you win? Man, won $14. Deer counts on his hoofs. Deer, that's like making 20 cents an hour. Man, pretty good, right? Plus free drinks. Man's eyes now transform into 2 roulette wheels spinning around. Man, lost 10 grand on roulette, but that doesn't count. I'm a poker player. Deer, sounds like you had a swell time. Man, sure, except for this one strange dealer. Now we head into a flashback at the poker room from his poker binge. Man is sitting directly across from a jolly fat poker dealer at a blood red poker table. The other 8 seats are occupied by a horse lady, a cucumber man, a rattlesnake man, a mohawked salami slice, a leprechaun, a bearded lady in a dress, a surfboard man, and a homeless man wearing a gold medal around his neck. I just had to come up with weird types of characters throughout this script that would work in an animation, so do with these as you wish. I don't know if it costs more to produce an animation like this in comparison to getting actors and whatever. I don't know how any of this stuff works in terms of a budget, but I guess that would be figured out if somebody actually wanted to make this one day. The poker dealer is saluting the table, and as he stands, to be replaced by the devil with an evil Joker grin. He's the devil after all. And the devil sits down, starts dealing out a hand of Texas Hold'em to all these weird characters. He now eyes Man, who has a mountain of poker chips in front of him. Man is doing a voiceover telling this story from the car as we watch these scenes. Every time he dealt me a hand, he would stare me down and taunt me. Now the devil speaking in this scene. Of all the filthy humans, you are by far the filthiest. You filthy piece of human filth. You are king among the filthy humans. King of the filth, king of the filth. The entire table now joins the chant towards Man, everyone together. King of the filth, king of the filth. Now, a little bit later, at the poker room that night, Man is at the table, and his massive chip stack is now shrunk in half. Man is also, he's doing the voiceover now. Every time I got a good hand, I would lose on the fricking river. Over. The devil is now dealing the jack of hearts on the river as the leprechaun pushes all his chips in. Leprechaun. My fellow degents, all in I be. Man calls him, pushes his chips in, and turns over his hand 2 red aces. But the leprechaun turns over his hand 2 blackjacks, giving him 3 of a kind in the winning hand. Leprechaun. My luck's a-changin'. Kids are gonna eat this week. The man fumes at the table, steam rising off his head while the devil smiles wide, walks across the table and jumps into his lap. The devil. King of filth, king of filth. Later at the poker room, a little bit later, Man's chip stack is now shrunk in half again, so barely anything left. As the devil deals the 2 of spades on the river. Man, voiceover, and over. Man peeks down at his cards. He's got 2 red kings. He pushes his remaining chips in to be quickly called by the bearded lady. He turns over his hand overconfidently as his pair of kings morphs into laughing evil demons who come to life and stab his arms with tiny fiery pitchforks. So his cards are coming to life now. The man freaks out, runs around the poker room, chased by the demons, who are now stabbing his ass over and over, while the devil pushes all the chips to the bearded lady and laughs like a madman. The devil. Another bad beat for the king of filth. Those little demons are pushing Man down onto the poker table, and they're stabbing his tongue with their pitchforks, while the other players at the table laugh at his expense. Ramble of voices from the table. What a loser, filthy weakling. I thought I was pathetic. What a piece of filthy shit. Alright, now even later that night at the poker room, Man is at the table still in his seat, sweating profusely from his forehead as he slams his cards down in frustration and loses another big pot, now down to only 1 poker chip. Man, voiceover, and over. The devil sticks out his serpent tongue and swipes the man's last chip out of his hand. That's the end of this poker room flashback. We are back in Man's car after Man told this story. He's driving, continuing to drive down the highway through this blizzard, through the Atlantic City Expressway, going away from Atlantic City, as his windshield wipers jam, forcing him to stick his head out the window, Ace Ventura style, to see the road ahead. His mouth and disgusting teeth flap in the wind while Deer watches him curiously. Deer: yeah, man, sounds like a real dick. He ducks his snow-covered head back inside. Man: I know, right? So then I go to the casino bar to let off some steam. Another flashback. We're now at the casino bar. Man is sipping a beer on a stool. Then he reaches into his pockets, pulls out some lint and a $1 bill, and places the bill into the slot machine on the bar. The slot spins and stops on 666. Man, shit. That was Man seated on the bar saying shit to himself. He presses the button for another spin, and the slot machine stops on devil figure, devil figure, devil figure. So 3 devil figures in a row. The middle devil figure jumps out of the machine and pokes his eyeballs, as Man is doing a voiceover now from the car. But the losing streak continued, and just when I thought I hit rock bottom, who pops up behind me? Poof! The devil appears at the bar and chugs from the beer tap. As now Deer is doing a voiceover. The devil? Man doing a voiceover. Yep, that same little devil from earlier. The devil unzips and pisses up towards Man. Man voiceover. This time he starts pissing on me right in the open with the rest of the bar watching. Deer voiceover. Yikes. Patrons in the bar point and laugh towards Man as this devil is peeing all over him. Alright. You can see this devil figure is, he can just appear. He's the poker dealer, and now he's appearing in the slot machine. He's coming to life. This is an animation. Don't try to get technical with these scenes. They're supposed to be absurdly stupid. And hopefully you can get into that mindset now as I continue reading. That's the end of that flashback. We're back inside Man's car later on. After he told that story, he's swerving down the highway, trying to stay in his lane as the snow falls even heavier. Man. The worst part was how the rest of the bar reacted. 40% of the place joined in soon after, laughing and pissing on me. He dodges vehicles that end up sliding off the highway in the blizzard. Deer. Damn, 40%? That is a rough percentage, man. Another deer darts out into the highway. Deer. Hey, check it out. It's my Uncle Freud. Deer sticks his head out the window. Deer. Hey, Uncle Freud, what you doing out? Man tries to swerve, but rams directly into Freud as his decapitated head crashes through the windshield onto Deer's lap. They both home alone scream and hot potato the bloody head until Deer finally tosses it back outside through the windshield. Deer. What the holy hell loving fuck, man? Man. I'm sorry, he came out of nowhere. Deer takes a deep breath and calms himself. Deer. It's okay. You wouldn't believe how many of us die like that. It's an epidemic, but it still gets to me. A fancy red sports car pulls up on the driver's side, and the devil extends his neck through the passenger side window, Inspector Gadget style, right into Man's window. The devil, the same devil figure. Whenever it's a devil, it's always the same, pretty much the same character throughout this story, because he reappears a lot. The devil. Is that piss I smell? Did 60% of a bar piss on someone recently? Man, It was 40%. The devil drops a bag of Gloritin pills onto man's lap. The devil, here, some pills for the king of filth. Man, what? The devil's neck now retracts back into his car as he speeds away, hooting wildly out the window. The devil, king of filth, king of filth. Man rolls up his window and inspects the bag of pills while Deer sniffs him. Deer, just what the hell is that guy's problem? You don't even smell that bad. He sniffs Man some more. Deer, I kind of like the smell of pee. Not that I have a fetish for human pee or deer pee. Definitely not a pee guy. They share some awkward silence as Deer sniffs him some more. Deer, nope, no pee pervert here. Don't even know what golden shower means. Why would anyone put those two words together into a Google search? Man holds up the bag of pills. Man, so, some pills then? They pop absurd amounts of pills into their mouths. In the first iteration of this scene, I just used Valium, but then you remember Gloritin was a drug that Lori was taking in that story. So it's kind of like a mood type of a balancer, like Valium would do, I guess. And I just wanted to use the same thing again to show some connection in this weird universe I'm creating. So these Gloritin pills will probably have a similar color and some brand, maybe just a G or that looks like a smiley face or something like that. And yeah, I thought it'd be cool to put little details throughout the season to connect to the universe I'm creating, which is completely a ripoff from Black Mirror. Like I said it before, I love Black Mirror. I love the way they can keep some of the universal principles almost. Like you feel connected to Black Mirror. At least I'm talking about myself here. I feel connection to Black Mirror because I feel like I'm entering into some other universe that maybe every episode doesn't necessarily continue some grand storyline, but I feel like the writers pay so much detail to connecting some episodes together, even if you have to go on YouTube, because it's kind of too subtle for my brain to understand. All right, a little bit later, Man is still driving down the Atlantic City Expressway. Now the snow is lighting up, and it's not really a blizzard anymore. He's swallowing down some more pills with Deer. Then he's gazing towards the night sky as it turns purple, pink, green, yellow, with these weird polka dots and streaks of beautiful, shimmering, psychedelic light. He hallucinates these stars, transforming into little glowing devil figures who are laughing and pissing colorful snowflakes onto the highway, while Texas Hold'em hands appear every time he blinks. Very quickly, whenever I went down to Atlantic City, and at the end of this, I'll talk about my own gambling addictions, which I talked about before. I used to go down to Atlantic City, take the train all the time, and play poker. If I played for like 20 hours straight or longer than that on the weekends sometimes I would, either if I was driving home or taking the train home, I would see like the cards in my head. I don't know if other people had that, because you're looking at flops for like 20 hours all night, all morning. Those images stay in your brain like as you're trying to sleep. Sometimes I would see the cards in my head. It's kind of disturbing, actually. I started taking the train because it's more relaxing, and a couple times I drove home from Atlantic City and I almost like fell asleep. So that's terrifying when you're driving home after playing poker and gambling for 20, 30, 40 hours straight, because that's how it was for me in my 20s or even later in life. Sometimes I would just binge it and get so addicted I never wanted to leave the casino. And yeah, it gets dangerous. That's terrifying when you can't keep your eyes open when you're driving. I think Joe Rogan mentioned it. You should keep like cold water in your car if you're ever going through that, and just sprinkle your face from time to time because that is absolutely terrifying. I've been through that a couple times when I took road trips and driving home. When I'm like an hour, 2 hours left, that's when I would get really sleepy and my eyes would start to close and the lanes. That's when shit gets real kind of dicey, man. So there's a lot of me in this character. I just wanted to mention that really quickly. That's what I'm going for. That's where this came from. So every time the man, and yeah, of course he's taking these drugs now, so that's not helping him either. Every time he blinks his eyes, he's seeing cards in his head or just on the windshield like a hallucination. So seven of spades, seven of hearts, nine, six of clubs, nine of clubs, seven of diamonds, two of hearts, six of spades and a six of clubs, 10 of diamonds, two of spades, ace of spades and an eight of clubs, the dead man's hand. And then the last card he sees is the Grim Reaper tarot card. The Grim Reaper comes to life in his hallucination now out of that card and moves his sickle towards man's neck as he ducks, and the Reaper disappears into thin air. Deer is also kind of fucked up. He's got stoned eyes now because he's been taking the pills also. He's opening up the glove compartment, grabbing a bag of hot fries and chowing down. He wipes off his hoofs covered in orange dust, which forms an orange dust universe. So you know when you eat hot fries, you get it all over your fingers. He's wiping off all that orange dust, and in his head, it's forming this orange dust universe with planets, shooting stars, and meteors. An orange spacecraft lands on Deer's shoulder, and two friendly orange aliens step out and wave. Deer is waving back, then turning his head back towards man. Deer, I think we may have taken too many of those pills. So maybe they're talking in slow motion effects. I've never taken Valium. I don't think I have. Or I've never been a pill guy, thank God. I've never been addicted to really any drugs. Not really. I said nicotine, cigarettes, and coffee. Those were my two main drugs throughout most of my life that I was really in need of. I needed cigarettes and I needed coffee to get through the day when I had that type of lifestyle. The 8 to 5, whatever I worked, I needed coffee throughout the day and I needed cigarettes. Like I was addicted to those chemicals, but not anymore, not for a long time now. All right. Now, a little bit later that night, man is still driving down the highway. So, through 10 pages now, this whole story is just man driving his fucking car. I made it a Monte Carlo because it's kind of, I like that car, that design of that car. He's driving down the highway. His head turns towards Deer as he's in mid-conversation. And I did put slow motion vocal effect on this conversation here. Man. And that's why I always wanted to be a professional surfer. Deer doesn't appear very interested as he yawns in his seat, stretching and lights a cigarette. Man, a lot of ignorant people view it as a bunch of beach bums on plastic logs, but there's this whole ancient connection with the waves, man. A spiritual awakening that you just can't comprehend until you experience it yourself. Alright, I'm not a good voice actor, not a capable voice actor at this point in my life. But that's what I'm going for. His conversation, because he's all pilled up, he'd be speaking so slowly. And he looks down at the speedometer and it's reading 5 miles an hour. At the same time, outside, we see that his car is barely moving on the Atlantic City Expressway as other vehicles are zipping by him and honking at him. I kind of stole this from that David Spade, Chris Farley movie. I forget which one, when they're all stoned driving. Maybe it was Tommy Boy. And I seriously, I get those two movies confused, Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. It's hard not to confuse those two movies. They're great, they're classics, but yeah, it's very similar type of things. And that's when they're like driving down the road, going like barely 5 miles an hour. I totally, yeah, got inspired by that, by that type of comedy. And he's like, Road. Road's a funny word. All right. Now, a little bit later in the night, man is still driving. We're going into the musical part of this story now. I tried to spread it out like maybe every 10 pages or so, which is why I came up with 5 songs, 5 original songs. Man is fiddling with the radio as he drives, while Deer puffs on his cigarette. Man, hey Deer, what are your thoughts on doctor-assisted suicide? Deer, euthanasia? I mean, why not? If some a-hole hunter shot me in the leg, I would beg him to put me out of my misery. Man, what about the whole going to hell thing? Dear, I'm happy to roll the dice on that whole eternal damnation prospect. He blows some smoke rings that form into pitchforks. Man, did you not just see the devil pop into this car earlier? Or did you not see the devil pop into this car earlier? Dear, I guess I'm full of contradictions, just like everyone else. They grab hands and fly through the window into the night sky, passing dozens of psychedelic, colorful skeletons who wave, smile, jump rope, and play Russian roulette at a table. Of course, this is a drug, kind of a hallucination. They're not really flying through the window, as the car is just driving itself at this point. So yeah, again, man, this is a stupid animation with crazy, absurd characters, a talking deer, and a man named Man. We're now in space because man and deer are floating in the space. And this is the first original song the music would start. Is the song's title is Doctor Assisted Suicide Right for You. As they're flying in space, they're singing and harmonizing their voices, deer and man. Is Doctor Assisted Suicide right for you? Is Doctor Assisted Suicide right for you? And they continue, is Doctor Assisted Suicide right for you? Doctor Assisted Suicide right for you? Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I really hear it in my head. Deer is drifting off solo through the stars while Uncle Freud shows up, holding his own smiling, decapitated head under his arm as he waves. Dear, what is the source of life? Please enlighten. Man shoots on by him, propelled by a rocket pack. Man, what would you hope to find? It's frightening. Deer is now flying by a Catholic priest, a Jewish rabbi, a Muslim imam, a Hindu guru, a Buddhist monk, a Druid priestess wearing a crown of flowers, and a Satanist priest wearing a goat mask. All of these religious leaders are holding hands and chanting and dancing together in a unified large circle. Dear, no one gets out alive. Why all the hatred? Man now rides a smiling shooting star down into the circle. Man, I think it's improvised. There's no real basis. Man and deer are now hovering down inside a spacecraft and land on the moon, where man steps out onto the moon's surface. Man, one small step for man. Deer follows him out and drives a golf ball into the black void. So he's hitting a golf ball from the moon. Deer, or was it all a scam? The moon collapses in half, and it's revealing a Hollywood movie set where the director and stagehands scurry away, Man and deer are now tap dancing around this fake moon during a brief instrumental break. Then they fall through a trap door and descend through space back towards Earth. So, yeah, the moon was just a Hollywood set. It's a trope, but I thought it'd be funny to utilize in this scene. They're drifting. They're now drifting past an old man in a trucker hat sitting on top of a satellite, drinking a can of beer. As they're descending towards Earth, these are all the things they're kind of drifting past. And there's other colorful haired trolls giggling around this man. Dear, is doctor assisted suicide right for you? Is doctor assisted suicide right for you? They're drifting past patients in hospital beds upon clouds, where a rabbit doctor smothers a patient turtle's face with a pillow, like he's killing him. And they keep singing that line, is doctor assisted suicide right for you? Assisted suicide right for you? It's almost like one of those songs where it's overlapping. It's hard to sing this with just one person. Is doctor assisted suicide right? Is doctor assisted suicide right for you? Like the row, row, row your boat effect, where you need a group of people to sing along because you can't do it just with one voice. Now they're drifting past a turkey doctor who's injecting a needle into his patient T-Rex's arm as he flatlines. So it's just showing these doctors killing their patients. Deer and Man, they're singing that song again, the same line. Now they're drifting past a teddy bear doctor who's slices open patient gnome's skull, then sprays a bottle of cleaning liquid onto his brain, and he wipes it squeaky clean. As Deer and Man continue singing that line, now they're moving past a female robot who's birthing robot twins. The robot doctor nearby is cutting the fiber optic umbilical cords, and he's now handing the robot twins to Man and Deer as an army of robots soars towards them. Man. And when the robots take over, Deer, will they inherit our super ego? Now, both of the... Alright, so these robots are floating towards them, and Man and Deer are trying to fend them off, and they toss the robot twins away as they descend farther back to Earth, while the other army of robots hovers around them, singing along in robot voices. So now they're all singing together, Deer and Man and the robot voices. Is doctor-assisted suicide right for you? Doctor-assisted suicide right for you? Alright, end scene there. That's the first song. We're back in Man's car now. Everything that just happened it was a haze or hallucination. Man's driving his car towards a large fallen tree branch in the middle of the highway. He swerves away from it, but he hits an icy patch and fishtails. Man, casually towards Deer. Hey, you want to go over there? Suddenly, he crashes the car right into a tree. As they crash through the windshield and land in the woods, bodies bent forward, heads down in the snow. Deer. Sure. Man's car now blows up in the background. Later that night, Man and Deer, they're walking through a forest as Man is shivering, his teeth chattering, as he swallows a few more pills like they were candy, those Gloritin pills. Man, we're gonna die out here, Deer. Deer, don't worry, just need to start a fire. Man grabs Deer by the collar as Deer lights up a cigarette with his lighter. Man, hellfire, Deer. Hellfire! Deer slaps him across the face. Deer, calm down, man. Deer leads him into a cave hidden by some tree branches and starts a fire with his lighter. They cuddle up close to each other and awkwardly spoon for warmth. Man, you're all right, Deer. Deer, you're all right too, man. All right, so they're becoming close friends now. It's nothing romantic. This isn't some kind of hidden fantasy where I want to have sex with a deer or something. I'll just tell the story now. The reason I made this story, one day at work, I was doing my stretching meditation outside. I think it was a winter time maybe. And this deer came up to me and started peeing like right towards me. So I was just like, what the fuck? Usually when I see deer, they run away. This deer was like fearless. She came up to me and just peed like right next to me. And just stood there staring at me as I was like just trying to do my stretching and shit. I called it my own like Tai Chi shit. So that's what caused me to write this story, from that one little silly moment where this deer was pissing near me and just staring me down. Like, why are you in my territory, bitch? That's what I figured. The deer was like thinking that in her head. I think it was a female deer. I seem pretty stupid now. But I think it was a female deer. But in the story, I just made it a man deer. So yeah, it's just a bromance between the man and deer. They're not having sex or anything. There's no animal fantasies deep within my consciousness. All right, so they're hanging out, sleeping together, cuddling close for warmth in this cave. The next morning, early morning sunlight is shining down on man and deer as they stand on the side of the highway with their thumbs out, while a group of deer approach them from the forest. Deer, shit, it's my big brother, Jerry. Jerry, sporting a crew-cut army jacket, walks smugly towards the two. Jerry, hey, Dick Burger, what you doing out here with this piece of human filth? Jerry pisses on man. Man, aw, come on. Deer, shut it, Jerry. Jerry, what, leaving this town full of losers to chase after your crazy pipe dream again? Deer, just get out of here. Man, what's your dream, dear? Dear, it's nothing. Jerry, he wants to be a lounge singer down in the city. No way a deer gets a gig like that. Deer, better than staying here and waiting to be the next roadkill victim or target practice for some aggro. Jerry gets up in his face. Jerry, you gonna run and hide in the suburbs again like last season? Deer, it worked, didn't it? Jerry, and who had to save your lame ass when you got stuck in the Taco Bell dumpster? Deer doesn't back down from his older brother. Deer, if you were smart, brother, you would get the hell out of here too. Jerry, hey, you have family here to protect you, and family who could use your protection too. Always only thinking of yourself. Deer turns his back to him and gazes towards the Atlantic City skyline off in the distance. Deer, this time's different. I'm gone for good, living out my true calling once and for all. Jerry steps out slightly onto the highway. Jerry, never will comprehend how you became like this, dear. So naive, so full of hot. Just then a semi flies by before he can finish that sentence and pancakes him as his corpse cracks into dozens of pieces. Deer, Jerry! Deer tries to put his body parts back together like a jigsaw. So they're having this conversation right on the side of the road, and he just happens to inch out a little bit too close, and this semi truck just flattens him like a Roadrunner cartoon. Deer is trying to put his body back together like a puzzle. Deer, shit, I was never good at puzzles. Is this his hip or his neck? He gazes towards the sky. Deer, damn you, road, damn you, road. Man puts his arm around him. Man, I'm sorry, dear. Dear, it's okay. I told you most of us end up like this. The two new friends share a moment of silence. Then man takes out the bag of Gloritin pills. Man, more pills? Deer nods, and they both swallow some tablets, then turn back towards Jerry's flattened corpse as another semi runs it over. Deer, this is why I need to live out my dream before my number is called. The two new friends gaze towards the Atlantic City skyline in the distance. Man, I believe in you, dear. Dear, thanks, man. They walk farther down the side of the highway. So yeah, we have a weird scene there. I needed to create that inciting incident almost. Man just left Atlantic City. Now he's going back because Deer has that dream of being a lounge singer, and it just gets more ridiculous as the story goes. And he just watched his brother get flattened because I just figured when I was writing this, like, you think deer would have evolved by now. You think deer would have evolved over the last hundreds of years since cars, at least over the last 50 years, that they would stay away from the fucking highways, man. I hate it when I see dead deer during the wintertime and be like, it's such a waste of a deer. Like, I love deer. Deer, they're like my spirit animal. I really enjoy deer. I've really came close to one besides the one that pissed on near me. And I don't know, I just really like deer. I think they're my spirit animal or something. But I would say the same thing about owls too. I really enjoy owls. But I guess owls, maybe that's a little bit of a different version of a spirit animal. But yeah, I'm a fan of deer. I think they're just beautiful animals. And yeah, it sucks when you see them get run down. I worked at the Amazon warehouse last winter. So I was driving on 295 to and from work, driving home like 1 a.m. or later. And I would see a lot of dead deer. The GPS actually tells you now there is an object in the middle of the road. It warns you because, man, it's scary as shit. I would come home and drive through the side roads in the winter, and the deer would just pop out or just be standing in the middle of the road, and you're just like, oh, fuck, get out, get out. I came close at least a handful of times to just totally ramming right through a deer, and thank God I was able to slow down or swerve out of the way and not cause an accident. So it is dangerous. A lot of people put those whistles on their cars or whatever to kind of warn the deer, get the fuck out of here. It is sad. Even if people hunt deer, if you're going to eat it, that's fine. You're eating it. That's a part of the food chain, I guess. But to just kill a deer with your car by accident, not like no one's intending to do it, but the deer sometimes are just hanging out in the middle of the road. And in a lot of these rural areas, you don't have these street lights to see them until you come really close, until they're in your headlights. And the deer in headlights, a lot of times they don't move. They just stay there. They don't run off. I'm like, man, when is that going to become a part of their natural selection where they evolve and don't hang out in the middle of highways anymore? Like, yeah, it is kind of funny, but it is sad to see that every year. So that's what I was going for here. All right, now we're on top of a hilltop overlooking Atlantic City a little bit later in that day as the sun's setting, and man and deer are gazing towards miles of high-rise casinos from afar as other tourists are strolling down the boardwalk, holding their noses from the ocean stench and grime. I use Atlantic City as a setting in a couple stories in this series later on too, maybe 2 other episodes, because that was a city I used to go to just to gamble, and it's not a bad city. I make it out to look like this sleazy place because I watched this documentary on YouTube from the 80s when casino gambling got legalized and how it turned the city into a different experience. A lot of the locals voted on it, thinking they were going to get a piece of the pie, and no, didn't really work like that. It wasn't Trump; it was the other guy, Steve Wynn, and he was the one that was in this documentary from the '80s, and it included this one woman who owned a parking lot in Atlantic City, and he kept trying to buy it from her. The Wynn Casino needed to buy this property. They offered her like millions, $15 million or some crazy amount. But this woman was so stubborn. I kind of sided with Steve Wynn. Not, I'm usually on like the working class side, but this woman, all she did was run a parking lot. She was kind of up there in age. And I think the Wynn Casino Group was going to give her like 15 million bucks in the 80s. That's like a crazy amount of money. And she was like, no, I don't want to. She thought the land was worth more than that. She could have been right about that. And I guess she was just so stubborn she wouldn't sell. I don't know what happened in the end. I really don't know. But there's a lot of stories like that. Even when Trump came into Atlantic City, there's a lot of corruption and scandals. I'm not the right person to talk about this because I don't know enough about Atlantic City. But I paint it out to be this sleazy place, and that's not my real feelings. I just needed to create an atmosphere like that, and Atlantic City seemed like the right spot to set this in because the casinos did bring that different element to a normal beach town. You create all these big casinos and you bring in this new element. Look at what Philadelphia did. They created maybe 7 casinos over the last few decades to compete with Atlantic City. And I don't know if there's studies, I'm sure there are, if it increases crime, if suicide rates can go up because people lose all their money gambling. It's a social ill, but again, I was a part of the gambling addiction. I had a gambling addiction for a long time. Whether it was online casinos, I had to ban myself from online casinos. A couple of decades ago, in my early 30s, I was just like losing too much money. So I went online, and you can fill out this form to ban yourself, a lifetime ban from gambling on casinos. So I was lucky I did that. That's the only good thing I really did, because those commercials you hear on the radio, call 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a gambling problem. I guess if I would have called that number, they would have probably suggested that I do that. But at least I had the restraint and the awareness, self-awareness that I couldn't control myself. I would lose poker hands. Like, this is how emotional I was, because I wasn't making a lot of money at my job at that point in my life. And I would just gamble like an idiot. And I got so emotional. Like, when I picture a good gambler, a poker player or whatever, I picture like these stoic people that don't get emotionally involved whether they win or lose. But that was never me. I would lose poker hands, like get bad beats, and I would like go nuts and like punch holes in my wall and throw fits on the kitchen floor, like bang my head against the wall. I was really, really bad with gambling, man. Of course, you can't do that when you're in a live casino, but when you're playing online in your underwear and you're just like gambling on roulette or poker, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. I can't be the only person that has a bad temperament for gambling. Yeah, I punched a hole in my wall one time. I was so angry, and I just did other stupid shit like that. I couldn't control myself. I had good experiences because it is fun as well, but in the long run, it's going to really age you and maybe even cause some physical and deeper psychological problems. Because I think I was kind of self-destructive, and you mix a self-destructive personality like I used to have with a gambling addiction or any kind of addiction, alcohol. Luckily, I never really went down that road. or other kinds of drugs I never really got into. Gambling was attractive because I wanted to make easy money. I thought I could do it, and you realize soon that it's a stupid idea, but it takes a long time, at least it did for me, to kind of make that realization that it's such a ridiculous way to spend your time. But eventually I got there. I haven't gambled in a long time. The closest thing to gambling that I'll do today is like March Madness brackets, but you're not really gambling any money. You're just trying to win money, and that seemed to be okay. It's not like a gateway drug to get me back into stuff. 'Cause I was just as addicted to DraftKings and FanDuel and doing shit like that, because that is it's just fun, man. Beware people in your 20s that are getting into that shit. Unless you're good at it and you're making steady money off of it and you're smarter than I was. I tried to develop like my own algorithm about NBA daily fantasy sports. I was so addicted to it. I would leave work every day and just go to a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts and set all my lineups. And yeah, it was a complete waste of time, but it is so much fun. There's I think an episode of Black Mirror or some episode, I can't remember, and it featured this guy driving a cab, and then in his spare time, he would just gamble all his money away. And he makes the realization that he needed that in his life because his everyday routine was so mundane. He's just driving a taxi around for like a decade, 2 decades, and his gambling addiction was there, not just the money. He just wanted to feel something, and I talk about that more in other podcasts I did. I call these podcasts now my other therapy sessions, where I talked about my gambling addiction. It's really about that feeling of money's not in control of me, like, because in a capitalist society, money controls you. As soon as you leave school and you have to fend for yourself, you're a slave to money to survive. And a lot of times you have to waste your life doing shit you don't want to do, because that's just how society is. You need to have some kind of a structure, and I don't know how else you would really make it a fair enterprise. I don't know if you would just do the government, what's that called? Guaranteed basic income or whatever. Just give everyone $1,000 a month to live, at least have enough money to live and eat. Would people just take that money and gamble it all? I don't know. I'm sure it would. It's just human nature. When I would get my stimulus checks and stuff during those time periods, I would try to use it for good things, like fix my car and get other things that I didn't really want to spend money on. But yeah, I'm going way off topic now. Let me continue reading this story. I'll try to read about 8 more pages, and then I'll take a break. All right. So they're looking at Atlantic City, and they're swallowing more of the Gloritin pills. And Deer man is saying, "Hey, you want more pills?" Deer says, "Sure," and they swallow more pills. All right, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. They're overlooking Atlantic City now, and Deer says, "There she is, the city of dreams." Because really, the motivation for going back to the city is because Deer wants to live out his dream of being a lounge singer. And as they're looking at the city, they hear gunshots ringing out in the distance, followed by police sirens and other people screaming. Man, where dreams are turned into dreams. Deer. I don't think that's quite how it goes, but sure, we can go with that. This dialogue probably sounds better if I don't read the action. So, Deer, there she is, the city of dreams. Man, where dreams are turned into dreams. Deer, I don't think that's quite how it goes, but sure, we can go with that. Man is now sobbing uncontrollably as he tosses a few more pills into his mouth. Deer, What is it, man? Man, it's a cesspool down there. My gambling addiction is too overpowering. Now I have this new pill addiction too, plus all the random pissing. I'm a complete mess, an all-time loser for the record books. Deer puts his arm around him. Deer, stop. You're not that big of a loser. And forget about the pee. Let's go down there and live out our dreams. You and your dreams of, well, whatever the hell you're dreaming of. Maybe it is just to exist. Yeah, you are probably better off just existing. Man wipes tears away from his eyes. Man, I think I can do that. Dear, and me and my dream of a little song and dance. They walk down the hill towards more gunfire and sirens. Dear, bring some real entertainment to this rat-infested world. They won't know what hit them. Deer puts his arm around Man again as they gaze out towards the city in the distance. Deer, just like Jerry's stupid, wretched, bitch-ass body getting ripped to shreds by that semi. All right, now we're cutting to a little bit later. It's nighttime. Yeah, that scene was daytime. So now we're at that night in a casino club. As a jazz band of 3 elves, a sax player, a trumpet player, and a drummer perform on stage, accompanied by a fierce redhead winged fairy named Maya, who belts out the song to a small, unenthusiastic crowd of degenerates. They're just playing a jazz staple. I would recommend something like Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra. It's kind of a jazz song, but it's more of like a lounge or, I don't know, a crooner song. There's a jazz quality to Frank Sinatra music. I like it, but I don't know if that's exactly jazz music. It's like big band, a different kind of jazz. I forget the guy's name who was like his big producer. I forget the guy's name. I don't feel like looking it up right now. All right. Deer is instantly transfixed by Maya's beauty as Man tries to get his attention. Man, hey Deer, I'm gonna go get some cash. Deer ignores him, keeping his gaze on Maya. Man, Deer, hello. Man eventually gives up and walks away towards the casino floor. While Deer takes a seat at the bar, his eyes still fixed upon Maya as she finishes up the song. The other degenerates at the bar barely clap when she hits the last note, while she stares towards them undismayed. So this is just a dive bar. It's not a fancy casino. It's one of those like casinos in Vegas Vacation where they're playing like Go Fish or War. Maya from the stage. All right, thanks so much, everyone. We got a new one for you now. Hope you like it. Now we are going to get into the second song of this episode called Brainwashed by Romantic Comedies. And it's a very fun, jazzy type of experience. I'm sure people will understand where I'm coming from as I try to sing this. But Maya's the one singing it as she counts off the beat. The band plays the intro, and Maya sings Sleepless in Seattle, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, All Lies, Lies, Lies. Deer can't take his eyes off her. Maya continues, I've been brainwashed, oh yeah, by romantic comedy. She gets more energetic on stage, shows off some leg, while staring directly at Deer with heart eyes, like the animation effect, as she continues singing. Some like it hot, what I'm going for. Some like it hot, da-na-na-na-na. Crazy, stupid love, da-na-na-na. Say anything, please, just don't get me knocked up. So it's kind of a bluesy jazz song. Now Maya is dancing towards Deer, and she's caressing his scruffy beard. Maya, Yeah, I've been brainwashed by romantic comedies. She flaps her fairy wings, lifts him up into the air, and carries him through a window. Now we're outside, and she's flying over the Atlantic City boardwalk. Maya flies through the window carrying deer as she sprinkles fairy dust onto him, allowing him to fly on his own. Now they both soar up over the boardwalk's hustle and bustle, past carnival games, street performers, and random tourists under bright neon lights. Maya and Deer are now singing together. Yeah, we've been brainwashed by romantic comedy. The elves from the jazz band are also outside riding colorful unicorns as they play their instruments to a much faster tempo, for a brief instrumental interlude. So yeah, completely kind of old-fashioned, kind of tap dance type of up-tempo jazz instrumental break here. As Maya and Deer are flying through a window with a dusty old sign above reading Atlantic City Video Rental. So they're flying into an abandoned video rental store, but Maya inside is magically bringing this abandoned store back to life with her fairy dust. As the lights come on and the empty shelves fill up with VHS tapes, like a time warp just opened up, taking them back to the 1980s. I don't think I've mentioned, but this movie will take place in modern day. It could be anytime 2020. It's when I wrote this was around 2020. But now they're going back in time to the 1980s. As customers appear out of nowhere, dressed in 80s apparel, they're walking through the aisles, sifting through the VHS movies, while Maya and Deer are picking out some titles of their own. She lifts up the VHS of the 40-year-old virgin. Maya, 40-year-old virgin. Deer, why are you looking at me? She lifts up Almost Famous VHS. Maya, Almost Famous, Deer. More of a coming-of-age movie. She lifts up the Pretty Woman VHS. Maya, Pretty Woman? Deer, that's just Cinderella as a whore. She lifts up Forgetting Sarah Marshall VHS. Maya, Forgetting Sarah Marshall? Deer lifts up Buffalo 66 VHS. Deer, does Buffalo 66 strike a chord? They continue singing together. We've been brainwashed by romantic comedies. They fly back through the window as they keep singing. We've been brainwashed by romantic comedies. Maya and Deer are now back outside over the boardwalk where other tourists are dancing along to the music and the elves are joining in for the big finish. Maya and Deer and everyone else. You could make this everyone make it, but it is like a Family Guy type of a closing, almost like the theme song to Family Guy when they're all singing together at the end. We've all been brainwashed, all been brainwashed. I said we've all been brainwashed by romantic comedies. All right, that's the end of this. As Maya and Deer are sharing a lover's gaze. I don't know, like, I just spent weeks before singing my songs and going through shit. And these are like harder for me to get through because I don't perform music like this. We've all been brainwashed, all been brainwashed. I said we've all been brainwashed by romantic comedies. So yeah, you gotta get professional people to belt these songs out. It's like an old jazzy blues song. I don't know. Maybe I see like the roaring 20s or that type of an effect on a song like this. That's the end of this song. That's original song 2, Brainwashed by Romantic Comedies. Back inside the casino club now, moments later. Maya and Deer are bowing from the stage as the pathetic degenerates at the bar are clapping half-heartedly. One of them, who's a giant cyclops, chugs a beer and lets out an echoing belch that shakes the walls. As Deer gazes at Maya in a lover's trance. Deer, that was amazing. She kisses him on the cheek. Maya, take over me for a while. I need a drink. She walks off the stage as Deer scans the room, wiping sweat off his forehead. He clears his throat while the giant Cyclops throws a beer bottle at him. Giant Cyclops, sing something! Boos erupt from the crowd as Deer gulps and stares towards the crowd. Deer, his inner voice. So no one else is hearing this. This is his Deer's inner monologue. This is your chance, Deer. Show these people what you got. Pour out your heart and soul all over these unsuspecting fools, all over their dumb mutant faces. They'll all talk about this night later when you're winning your 14th Grammy. Deer approaches the mic as the crowd launches food and drinks towards him. Deer in a bad southern accent. Well, howdy there. You all doing lucky things? Sorry, excuse me 1 second. Well, howdy there. You all doing lucky things with the monies? Winning lots and lots of those monies? What am I saying? Why am I using a southern accent? He clears his throat. Deer. Anyway, here's a song you might know. It goes a little something like... He grabs a guitar from the stage. I would say like an acoustic guitar, but it doesn't really matter. Why am I getting so detailed? This is a cartoon. This is an animation. You can do whatever the hell you want. He grabs a guitar from the stage, performs the opening lines of The Gambler by Kenny Rogers, which is honestly one of my favorite songs. If you listen to The Gambler, it's just a classic, man. I know it sucks to be like the basic music lover and say, because that song must have been huge when it came out, but it's just an amazing song, man. So Deer is trying to play this song on stage, but he can't sing or play guitar worth a damn. But he's very determined nonetheless to gain his fame in this cheap casino club full of degenerates. So his brother Jerry was kind of spot on, like making fun of him for wanting to be a lounge singer because Deer has no musical talent at all. So he's trying to sing Kenny Rogers here. On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep. At the same time, on the casino floor, while Deer is still doing his performance, Man is swallowing more pills and then inserting his card into the ATM. As off-screen, Deer continues his performance. So we took turns staring out the window at the darkness till boredom overtook us and he began to speak. The ATM comes to life in front of Man. With long legs, demonic eyes, and sharp teeth. ATM to Man, feed me. The ATM grows larger and larger until he towers over Man. Deer off screen is still singing. Deer is performing this song while we're watching Man and his ATM monster. So this is Deer singing the song more. He said, son, I've made a life out of reading people's faces, knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. I don't even know if I'm singing this correctly. Man sprints away in fear as the ATM monster growls and charges towards him. ATM, feed me. Man, feed you what? You already have my card. ATM, I want your soul, man. Man trips and falls as the ATM grabs him, tosses him in his mouth, and swallows. Back in the casino club, we're now watching Deer as he performs more of The Gambler by Kenny Rogers. Deer, so if you don't mind me saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. Again, yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard this song in a while, so I'm probably singing it incorrectly and terribly. So it's pretty spot on. Deer would also be messing it up like I'm doing it right now. ATM stomach. We're now inside of ATM stomach. As man is plummeting farther down into the darkness as his screams echo. So it's like a huge cave he's diving down into, but he's inside the ATM machine. Deer off screen is still singing. You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. Man is now landing in a deep pit of ATM stomach. He strikes a match and lights a nearby torch. Deer off screen, he's still singing. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. The random cash monsters rise from their slumber and surround him. Cash Monster 1. So I'm picturing inside ATM's stomach, this monster ATM. There's all these cash monsters that look like cash, but they're like, fiendish monsters. So have fun kind of designing this shit. Cash Monster 1. About time. I'm starving over here. Man's stomach morphs into an ATM screen. And now Cash Monster 1 hits a heart-shaped button. And man's heart comes out the slot in his belly. So man's stomach becomes an ATM screen with like a touch screen. Cash Monster 1 is hitting a button that looks like a heart. Man's heart slides down through the slot. And Cash Monster 1 grabs it and eats it. Cash Monster 2 hits a brain-shaped button. Man's head shrinks as his brain slides down through his body out the slot. Like where the money comes out of the ATM. And Cash Monster 2 is eating his brain now. Cash Monster 2, mouthful. Cash is king, motherfucker. The rest of the cash monsters now pounce on man and fight for the scraps, whatever's left of his body. It's just a stupid, not so subtle, symbolic scene that if you become a gambling addict, you'll lose your ability to emote, because you'll lose your logic and you'll lose your emotional stability if you gamble enough. You'll either become jaded and self-destructive and kind of a cynical bastard. It doesn't have to be like that, though. Don't take me like I know how gamblers really act, because it's not like I did this my entire life for decades. I was just an off and on gambling addict. It got progressively worse later on, though, because even at my job in Philadelphia, I was like 5 minutes from Parks Casino. So I spent so many nights there on the weekends, and it was definitely a part of my life. I was more addicted to that than going to a bar and like getting drunk by myself. I would never do that, but I would always just go gamble all night, play poker all night by myself. All right. Now we are back inside the casino club. Deer is attempting a horrible guitar solo on stage as Maya walks towards him, or watches him from the bar with hard eyes. So she's like the only one that thinks he's good. Deer, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. His singing isn't much better as the boos now echo louder and louder, while the degenerates toss food and drinks towards him. Deer, know when to walk away, know when to run. As more projectiles hit him, he runs off the stage. And as these other creatures throw shit at him and hit him in the face with food and drinks. All right, back on that same time out on the casino floor, man is dazed in front of the ATM machine, which now looks like a normal ATM machine. So yeah, you could say because he's taking all these drugs throughout this episode, he's just having these weird hallucinations, almost very similar to Lori's story. When I talked about Lori, the opposite was she stopped taking her medication, and now she started having her weird hallucinations about the universe in her kitchen and shit like that. So maybe I'm just kind of speaking on the just the mania that could develop inside someone's head, because everyone's kind of different. Man is now in front of this ATM. He feels his stomach and head, then sighs in relief as he finds everything in the right place. He hits a button on the ATM screen, grabs the cash that comes out from the slot. The ATM comes back to life after he walks away and chuckles heartily to himself. So just as a little weird scene there. So he grabs the cash, walks away from the ATM, and as he's walking away, the ATM comes back to life and kind of chuckles to himself. A little bit later, on the casino floor in another location, Maya is tugging at Deer from behind as he runs farther away from the club. Maya, hey, wait. Deer turns back, teary-eyed. Deer, sorry. Guess I wasn't meant for the stage after all. Maya, what are you talking about? You were great. I think we might work best. I think we might work better as a duet, though. Deer, a duet? You would want to work with a no-talent hack like me? Maya, I would. Deer, I love you. Maya, I love you too. They kiss passionately, a little too passionately. Deer, that sure was quick and painless. Maya, let's just go for pure shock and awe with this. They kiss again as Maya lifts him up and flies him over the casino floor. So there's just like an instant love connection between this fairy goddess looking lady and Deer. I'm going to stop here. When we begin the next part, I'm on the top of page 25. I kind of did all right. I got through this fairly quickly. When we come back for part 2 in a couple hours, we're going to start with another original song that I wrote. Original song number 3, Our Love is Like the Military Industrial Complex. It's another maybe South Park inspired song, I think. But I'll start here in a couple hours. I was saying, I feel like I got through this fairly quickly. You know, I rambled for a half an hour in the beginning of this about random nonsense, and now it took me about maybe an hour and a half to get through 25 pages. But I was also doing some more commentary and analysis, so that's fairly normal. I think 2 hours is a good mark to get through 25 pages of a script I'm reading. To do it in a way that I can really flesh it out and explain what I'm going for, especially with this one. This is an animation, so I can only tell the animators what I see. I don't know how other people do it. I did watch that South Park documentary where they kind of showed how they create an episode, how quickly that they can take something in the news and make an episode dealing with that context in like under a week, or because the way they streamline their animation, it's pretty brilliant. I think that's why South Park stayed the test of time and stayed around for so long, because I'm going back to maybe when I was 13 years old. That's when the Christmas special came out on Comedy Central with Mr. Hanky. Is that his name? The Christmas Pooh. And that's my first experience when I was really young. And it just grew from there. It took over in a matter of a couple years. You would go to a boardwalk or Great Adventure and you would see South Park dolls like at the carnival games. That's when you know the shit's taken over. I don't think South Park ever had Happy Meal toys because 5-year-old kids getting Happy Meals probably don't watch South Park. It's more adult comedy. But yeah, they blew up. I'm sure South Park, it must have been like $1 billion enterprise throughout its run, and I think it's still going. I don't watch anything anymore, so I don't know. If I had all the money in the world, yeah, I would buy all the seasons of Family Guy, South Park, Game of Thrones. But right now, I don't have an income. I'm not really spending money on entertainment stuff. Yeah, because I would like to rewatch South Park and catch up on the new seasons. I have no idea. I'm way years and years of episodes to catch up on of South Park and Family Guy. I don't even know if they still do it anymore. And I'm sure there's other ones. I always like Bob's Burgers. That was, the guy's voice. He was from Home Movies. If you remember that one, Home Movies, Coach McGurk. That was an amazing cartoon, animation, whatever you want to call it, on Adult Swim. I always liked the Brak Show and Oblongs with, I think Will Ferrell's a part of that. Oblongs. So I'm a pretty big fan of animation. Rick and Morty is probably my favorite. That's the one that I have to purchase. If Rick and Morty has a new season, I kind of like have to pay for it because it's so good. I don't think they ever really had any bad episodes. That's how good it is. I could rewatch it. And the voice acting, and they don't do too many musical. I don't think they write original songs besides like the Get Swifty, piss on the floor, Get Swifty. I don't know if they do too many original songs, but they always have these montages with the one episode recently, a couple of seasons ago, when I guess it was like the sun and the people that ruled the sun or something. And then they played the Pink Floyd song, Goodbye Blue Sky. I think that's the one. So Rick and Morty will also utilize music, but not really original songs. Or they'll take a song like Oasis, Live Forever, and somebody else covered it. I forget who it was. So they'll do a lot of brilliant montages like that, which are amazing. I really think they do the best out of any show, like even live acting. I think Rick and Morty does better montages than anyone because they can show a complete whatever they want to show they can do because of the freedom of animation. Rick and Morty, Pink Floyd. I just want to make sure I said that right. What song they used. Yeah, Goodbye Blue Sky is in Rick and Morty season 6, episode 9, A Rick and King Mortar's Mort. There's like some kind of solar war. I don't know, it's been a while, man. Yeah, but it's so brilliantly done that it's hard not to, like, that's the first thing that popped in my head as I was mentioning Rick and Morty, and my memory banks were thinking of Rick and Morty episodes, and that's the first one that popped up because I really love that. So I think it's pretty easy to see where I'm going with this. I'm not going to say I hope people see where I'm going with this one because I think it's pretty obvious. I'm trying to make Family Guy episode. I'm trying to put some South Park pieces of inspiration as well as Rick and Morty and other stuff because I love that stuff. In my book, I listed my 10 favorite cartoons, like my favorite cartoons as a kid, because as a kid, that was a big part of my life. And then as an adult, you still have these animations that are so clever and better than a lot of other shows on TV. Like, I put Rick and Morty against anything in terms of comedy or even drama. Like, they get real deep with existential concepts about the human condition. They get pretty deep with a lot of stuff about fear, anxiety, and other mental, psychological issues, family drama, politics. The one with the turkeys, that was pretty awesome. Kind of similar to South Park. Rick and Morty had the Thanksgiving episode that is one of the best. I watched it a couple of weeks ago again, where the turkeys were really like some ancient army with the alien pilgrims, like the ancient aliens connection. Yeah, it's just an amazing episode. Like, it's making me laugh thinking of it now. And it's kind of similar to that South Park series where it was like the atheist armies fighting against each other because they had different titles for their atheist movements. That's one of the best South Park ones, I think. Or Imagination Land. Holy shit. That should have won all the Oscars in the world. The Imagination Land. I think that might have been like a 2-part episode. South Park, Atheist War. Maybe that'll come up if people want to go watch that episode. The South Park Atheist War occurs in 2-part season 10 episodes. Go God Go and Go God Go XII. I guess that's 7. Where Cartman freezes himself to wait for a Nintendo Wii. This is way back, 20 years ago, man. Wakes up in a future where 2 atheist factions are fighting out over what name is superior. The war is fought between the United Atheist Alliance and the Unified Atheist League and the Allied Atheist Alliance. So that's why they're fighting, just to see which name is better. It's pretty funny. Maybe that's where I talk about that a lot, that religion will be looked at as a brainwashed groupthink, but I always say, like, yeah, so can communism, so can atheism. Any kind of groupthink can lead to this type of a narrow-minded ignorance like that, where people, maybe human beings are just naturally designed for conflict, and that's why religions always have that. Sorry. That's why religions always have that. Or often, I always say always, but not always, often will experience schisms and other stupid conflicts. To me, it's stupid because, yeah, I don't think it's a necessary part. My God's dick is bigger than your God's dick. That's kind of what it comes down to. It's just people's penis envy and that type of and it's probably not just a man thing. I'm sure women are just as war hawkish. I wrote a little bit about that in my book about the Real Housewives complex. Those women are scary as shit. The Real Housewives of whatever fucking cunt town you want to put there. So yeah, there's a side to the feminine makeup as well that have that inner fire, that inner desire to rule the world, like the Tears and Fears. Everybody wants to rule the world. When you can talk about heady concepts like this, of weird philosophical elements, and you could put it attached to a funny show like South Park, that's when it becomes more relevant to a wide audience. Because whatever side you're on, you can enjoy laughing. Again, that's why I wrote the Gay Dinosaur Agenda. Definitely influenced by the South Park type of sense of humor, to show how stupid leveraging sexuality and identity politics, it's such a stupid thing to think about. So that's what I was trying to do with that musical that I never really wrote the songs yet. I never really wrote it out like this episode I'm doing right now. Man and Deer is supposed to be that. Yeah, it deals with some heady stuff, gambling, more religious concepts, and suicide later on. As we get to part two, it gets a little darker, but not as dark as like yesterday when I talked about Jailbreak. Um, but there are some dark concepts within this story that I'll get fleshed out when I come back and read the rest of it. Um, Mainly centered on man's plot line, his conflicts and his arc. Maybe this is one of the stories that I did follow, that 3-act structure. We meet man in his car and he's kind of a miserable wreck. And then towards the end, we'll kind of see how his story gets resolved. And maybe there's a type of a easy rider philosophy as well to this one, where not as in your face relevant to like the easy rider philosophy on how to survive in America, or not just America but anywhere. But I think Easy Rider was specifically talking about the counterculture, hippies trying to grow vegetables in the desert land and kind of showing how sad and foolish a lot of these movements can become. They might start out idealist, like the Me Too movement or the Tea Party movement. If they were even real at any point, they might start off the hippie movement, free love, peace and love, and uniting the world with one loving consciousness. No more countries, no more borders, no more Tower of Babel conflict, because we're all just, humanist at this point. The hippies, yeah, I guess there's a relation to humanism like that. I think they would probably, maybe a lot of the hippies, if they survived into today's world, would become secular humanist or other fancy terms like that. I'm not making fun of it. I just don't really know the ins and outs of secular humanism. And if you follow the South Park philosophy, in the future, when all the religions kind of fade away, if that happens, and you're left with these humanists and atheists, then they'll battle over some other shit. Secular humanist versus deist versus, those are kind of old concepts, but you have to make something else up there as a stand-up routine. So yeah, the use of animation, you can take very, very dark subject matters like terrorism and, I don't know, war. What gets darker than war? I don't think anything does. The human experience to create an identity and nationalism, tribalism. If you can approach those topics that are so dark and oftentimes like evil, cannibalism, the Donner Party, someone should make a musical about that shit. They made a movie about the soccer team that had to eat each other, Awake or Alive, I think it was called. That movie freaked me out as a kid. I don't even think I watched the whole thing. I don't think it gets much darker than thinking of World War II in Russia when people had to eat each other in Leningrad or wherever it was. They couldn't get food through the winter or whatever, how many years it lasted. So some people resorted to eating people to survive. There's crazy stories like that you cannot look at if you just stare into the evilness of that. Or not even evil, it's the human nature, the will to survive. Is there some kind of only the strong survive in that case? People who preach that philosophy, only the strong survive. So if you're in that situation, you're in World War II Russia where the Nazis are barricading your city so you can't get food delivered, you're running out of food supply, will the strong just eat the weak? Is that acceptable human societal relations? When it comes to cannibalism, is there rules attached to that, where the strong will just eat the weak? We just become like animals because we are animals. The strong humans will eat the weak humans, or people will eat their own children because they'll lose their mind. I'm sure there's crazy stories like that throughout the history of warfare, when armies would starve the other side, try to starve them out. Whether it's like medieval times, you surround someone's fortress or castle so they can't get food through the winter, and these people would just go crazy and probably eat each other. Some people would. Some people might just say fuck it and kill themselves. But when you look at I don't think it gets much darker than that, because you're entering your realms of your human psychology that most people never think about, or if they think about it, they never really think about it as a serious thing that they would ever consider, that they'd be involved in a plane crash and they'd have to eat their teammates or eat some human flesh to survive. I don't know how to really look at that. Is it like a beautiful thing about the strength of the human will to want to keep living, or is it just a madness that you would eat another person to stay alive? Like in Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Mac and Frank, with the rum ham floating off onto the Atlantic Ocean until the Guidos come and save their asses, and Frank's like about to kill him. Once the rum ham went overboard, your life's over at that point. If you can't have a goddamn rum ham, what's the point of living at that point? Rum ham. So yeah, if you're going to approach a topic as dark as cannibalism, then I don't even know if you can portray that in an animation type of appeal. But I'm trying to explore a lot of heady topics through animation because it makes it more light naturally if it's not real people eating each other. If you see cartoon cannibals might still be kind of disturbing, but it's not as disturbing as having a real movie where people are eating people, because then you could really put yourself in that situation, walk through their shoes. Your plane crashes and no one's coming to save you, and after a couple weeks you're starving to death, freezing to death. Your teammate might look appetizing. Would you really want to eat somebody? Like, that seems so disgusting. And how long would that even keep you alive? If eating your teammate keeps you alive for like 2 more days, is it worth it? I don't know. It's a really tough question. If it keeps you alive for maybe a week, then maybe it's worth it. Then maybe there's a chance that somebody will come and save you. But if like the Donner Party, eating your kid's arm will suffice you for like 2 days at most, because everyone's starving to death at this point. How can they have much meat on their limbs? You're just eating their skin. It's gross to even talk about this stuff. So I'm going to stop now. But the reason animation works in a story like this, at least this is my argument for it, you can't have this episode as real actors and make it as imaginative without all that crazy CGI stuff. At least you would have to rewrite everything if this was not going to be, if it was not able to make this episode man and deer as an animation. Yeah, you'd have to turn to a complete rewrite. Even if you use CGI, it's a different writing experience. As a writer, when you know you're writing an animation, you have complete freedom to explore anything. Complete freedom to whatever your imagination guides you, wherever that your imagination guides you towards, whether it's a sickening thing or whatever it is, the dark reaches of your psyche, you can put that on the script because of the beauty of animation. You're not restricted by any kind of the restrictions of live acting and set designs and all that shit, production cost, all that stuff goes out the window and you can just have fun with it. So yeah, that's what I'm going for. When we come back, there's 3 more songs to go through, about 25 more pages, and I'll try not to speak about cannibalism anymore. But yeah, it's just an interesting, it's an interesting way to handle issues like that, because you can poke fun of it through cartoons. I'm sure Family Guy got criticized many times, or South Park, because they're about to cross the line into this politically incorrect territory. South Park maybe more so, because they deal with relevant topics in the news and kind of go as far as they think they can possibly go. They made a whole musical about the Book of Mormon. I'm sure the Mormons probably didn't appreciate that, but I don't know, Mormons are so nice, they probably just said, hey, South Park people, why don't you come down to Utah? We'll teach you, we'll really show you what Mormons are like. Dun, dun, dun. I don't know. But yeah, you got to have balls if you're afraid of public outrage, and you're afraid to explore certain topics because it's taboo and it's not safe. I was like, should I keep cursing in these videos, or should I, and not videos, but in these talks I do every day, should I keep using obscenities even though I don't care about it? But I know other people might get turned off because of me saying fuck or cunt. Certain people might not want to hear that language, so should I negotiate that censorship avenue and censor myself? I kind of view this, instead of a more loose representation of a reading of my scripts, maybe I should handle it more like I was a professor and I'm speaking to a class of students and I'm teaching them screenwriting by dissecting my own screenplays. Maybe I should go towards that level and kind of go more professional. If I have that in me, you can't really fake that, but you can learn to speak like that. I don't know. I'm trying to negotiate that because I don't know yet. I'm still, really, my main concern is just being able to get these words out in a vocal inflection that's not annoying, that's not nasally, that doesn't give people a reason to turn this off because they think my voice is like grating and annoying. That's my main concern, because I don't know how I sound. I can listen to my own voice, whether when I was singing some of these songs or speaking right now. And it's hard to judge your own voice. I think a lot of people hear themselves on tape the first time and they're like, ew, I hate my voice. And I'm a little bit past that because I've been doing this for so long. So I'm not as self-conscious about how I might sound, but I think I'm approaching it, like, I would like people's opinions and what people think I could improve, because I think people who start a podcast, they probably suffer in the beginning, and then eventually maybe they get feedback or other professionals either to give them pointers and tips on how to speak clearer, or different types of subjects that they should explore, or better interview skills. If I was doing this with another person, I'd have to relearn everything so I don't cut people off. if this was a real podcast with like 2 or 3 people, you have to learn people's tendencies, when to speak up, when to hold back, when to add something that you think's funny, but it's not as corny as my jokes. So it's a very difficult it's a difficult road to master, to be even a good podcast. To expect someone to listen to your voice for an hour or 2 hours, it's not easy. And especially interviewing people, I think that's the ultimate skill. I was listening to Billy Corgan's podcast this morning. He was interviewing Tabitha from Bewitched, the actress that played Tabitha. And I was like, all right, I like how Billy Corgan interviews people. And it was actually really good. I think he has a good sense of when to speak, when to let the person speak, and how to continue the conversation, how to bring out things that he's trying to bring out and open things up to a more free expression and not so gated, to bring people's real personalities out. So he's pretty good at that. But I'm sure it was difficult because you start interviewing people, you'll probably have a tendency to keep putting your 2 cents in. And what can I add to that comment? But I think a good interviewer just lets the person talk, because the reason you listen to podcasts like that, even though Billy Corgan's just as interesting as a guy, Rick Beato had an interview with Billy Corgan, and it was like 2 hours, and it was really good. And they kind of, fed off each other because they're both really technical musicians with a long history in their brains of the history of music and entertainment, the entertainment business, because they were both involved. They're both still involved in that. But what was I really trying to say here? For myself, I'm just speaking for 2 hours and 20 minutes right now, and I'll come back and speak another 2 hours after a couple hours from now. And I'm trying to really embrace this and make it fun for myself, and also because I want to attract people to actually listen to me, and not only listen to my screenplays, but to hear the passion in my voice, that this is what I'm trying to offer to the artistic ether before I die, to get these episodes made and to write more. I got maybe 36 more episode ideas to write for this series. They're all weird like this, and I haven't done it. I made a list of maybe 36 episodes so I could do 3 more seasons of this show. And then my idea would be to just open this show up to anyone, any writer around the world, in any country, any nationality, whatever, could write a script, send it to the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy, and I would have a team of people reading these scripts and picking out the 12 best to the best of our ability, without any nepotism, without any political bias, just picking out the best stories. And I think that would be pretty cool. I think The Twilight Zone must have worked similarly, right? Like there was a team of writers that either wrote the episodes, or maybe they opened some up to outside freelance writers to try to get an episode in. I just remember the episode of Mad Men when the one guy becomes a Hare Krishna, and he wrote a script for Star Trek, and he's trying to get it into the right hands so Star Trek can maybe purchase his episode idea. I don't know if the Twilight Zone worked like that, where any writer could come up with some freaky concept, send it into the Twilight Zone back then in the 50s or 60s, and in the hopes of getting it made. Yeah, the freelance aspect is just as foreign to me as being a member of the Writers Guild. I'm not sure how either of those things work in terms of a career path, how to make money in those avenues as a writer, because I just keep going back to the DIY approach because that's all I've done. There might have been a couple times when I did research the Writers Guild, how do I get started? And I still don't know how you get immersed in that. Do people have to invite you in to like be a part of that world? I don't know, man. So the main reason I'm doing this, and I spoke about it more yesterday when I was finishing up Jailbreak, because that's probably like one of my scripts that gets better every time I read it, because I can really picture the scenes in my head. When you read one of your scripts like 20 times, 30 times, then you read it out loud, and then a year later you read it again, like it becomes a part of your writing DNA. And I really like that story. This one I also love still, but it's a different animal. And there's a couple ideas that are solely animations. This is one of them. There's another one later that's a little bit similar, but similar in tone, but not really. I'll talk about it when I get to it. Rinse and Repeat Part 1. It's also an animation idea. And I have other ones as well, but I haven't written the scripts at this point. I just have the ideas in my head, and maybe some of them have brief outlines of how the episode would go. If you go on my Substack page, I shared my outline from 2021 of Jailbreak. When I first sat down and put the story together, I usually would write like 30 or 40 scene headings and write maybe 2 or 3 or whatever sentences to describe the main message or theme I'm trying to get across, or story point that I'm getting out in each of these 20 scenes. And then I would actually go to final draft or whatever it's called, and I would write these 30 scene headings, and then I would start writing the actual screenplay from there. That was my outline process that I kind of swore by for these 12 episodes. Will I still use this in the future if I ever get to write screenplays and I can make money off of it and not become homeless? I would like to think yeah, because I think I developed a pretty good strategy. And I was able to write a lot of these stories in maybe 3 or 4 days. Very, very rough version of it. And then I go back and I'd have to polish the dialogue over and over again. I was very afraid that my dialogue sucked. And I think it was good that I was like that, because it made me want to develop a better voice for each of the characters that I was writing. I was very ashamed of my dialogue. I thought it was so unnatural, and it didn't work at first, and then I just kept working on it and working on it and working on it, which is in anything in life, you just have to keep doing it. So I feel more comfortable now, but a couple months ago I had another idea for a screenplay, and if I go and try to write it at this point, I'd use this game plan or similar, where I outline it first on my phone on a simple text document, and then I'd start the process of putting all these scene headings down, and then I'd start thinking of dialogue and researching things and watching videos to help me get inspired, and it would just go from there. Hopefully it becomes a natural process again, because it's not easy, man. And the reason even though I have a passion for this, hopefully you can see I'm legitimately passionate about getting these scripts actually made for my own selfish reasons, that I want to watch this shit. And yeah, it's a bit of the competitive spirit. Like, how would this series hold up against other series similar to this? That's a bit of that. That's a good motivation, though. But yeah, I am very passionate, but it's just if you can't make money off of this shit, which I haven't made money yet, I'm not going to keep doing it until I can find a way to make money from it. It's just that you have to be practical about it. I'm not going to spend the next month of my life writing something after I just did that for the last 5 years. I do what I can at this point. For the last year, I've written 20 new music albums, concept albums, and I'm supposed to write a book with all those lyrics, which I haven't done because I'm doing this now. And that's okay for me because that's another way to advertise myself. But specifically the screenplay writing, it's too much work, man. When you're not getting paid for it, it just gets you frustrated and angry. And because it's not like a song. I can think of a song in the morning, flesh it out in the afternoon, and make one of my recordings, and it would take one day to complete this song, and then it's done with. A screenplay could take a month, it could take 3 months as I go through the universe and try to think of different characters and different plot lines and whatever else, all these different plot devices. And yeah, I'm not going to do that unless I know I can make a living. It just doesn't make sense to keep doing it. But the reason that I'm doing this is to hopefully get to that point, because if I'm able to make money off my series that I'm doing now, or off the features that I did before this, like, yeah, then it gives me the open door to pursue this career for the rest of my life and do other stuff I want to do. So this is worth it for me because of that goal. If you can't get people to read your screenplay, then maybe people will listen to this. But I realize as I keep doing this, I know it's not to that level of a professional speaker, but what I said earlier is how I'm going to handle this. At least try to. Maybe the next one I do. The one I'm going to take on tomorrow is a 2-part series, actually, about this cursed lake. So we're going back to horror movies again after this one today. Maybe I'll try to handle that pretending I'm like a professor in a classroom and handling it more, less obscenities and more of a professional way. But I feel like I'm being fake at that point. But also, yeah, if you're a teacher, even in a university with young adults, yeah, some of my teachers probably drop some obscenities in college because, we're all adults in there. But if you had a teacher in college that's just constantly fuck, cunt, fuck, yeah, you might not take the person seriously after a while. So maybe I'll approach it from that angle and try to improve my diction and my vocabulary. But again, this is my natural self, so it's hard to go against the grain when it's your natural, what you consider to be your natural speaking voice, at least. And I would rather hear somebody who's above board, even if they're kind of has that sailor's mouth or whatever they call it, and somebody pretending to be something they're not. But yeah, if you really think about it, yeah, whoever said that cliche that the world's a stage, because everyone kind of acts in whatever setting they're in. You're going to act differently in church. You're going to act differently in your classroom. You're going to act differently at a strip bar, a strip club. You're going to act differently when you're playing sports competitively. So everyone's kind of a bit bipolar or multiple personalities. because that's just how society demands you to be. You can't be the same way in your home as you are in a church or as you're watching a movie or whatever. Your setting really determines sometimes how you're going to act. Like a lawyer couldn't be like this unless you're watching Idiocracy or Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny. So different professions, different places, you have to change kind of how your tone and your demeanor, because that's just what society demands you to be like. It's just the demands of the social contract. So it's something I'll think about going forward, because yeah, I don't get any responses to this. Is my Substack page even available, or are people blocking me? Is there some big grand conspiracy that I keep posting my Substack post, hoping to gain some attention as I'm struggling to build a business as one individual who's been working like an idiot for the last 6 years on this thing? Are other people blocking me? Is my internet even neutral to that degree where other people are able to view my post every day? Because I don't know, social media is weird as fuck. Substack is a good mode of getting my thoughts out and sharing my art with people. But how legitimate of a chance do I currently have? What kind of a voice do I have? Am I like Christian Slater in Pump Up, or what's that movie? I was gonna say Pump Up the Volume. There's an 80s movie with Christian Slater where he's like a high school kid and he's broadcasting a like underground radio show from his like bedroom or something. And yeah, what's that called? I watched it a couple years ago. Christian Slater, Pump Up the Volume. Yeah, it is what it's called. 1990. It's all right. A pirate DJ named Hard Harry. Yeah, he's always talking about jerking off and stuff. It's a decent movie. It's got those same kind of. It's 1990, but it's more of an 80s movie. I consider it. I thought it was an 80s movie like Heathers or something. It's similar to Heathers. I think he's in that too. Yeah, Heathers is 2 years prior, 1988. It's similar to that type of a movie. I thought Heathers was done better, but this one's pretty good too. But yeah, how much of a audience do I have right now? Is this a legitimate way to reach anybody? Am I better off being on a street corner right now saying this shit as people walk by on their daily whatever they're doing as they walk by me? Do I have a better avenue of publicity and marketing through something like that? Or does this approach, does it actually put my voice out there? Does it actually share my art with people who might actually be able to guide me to the next level of this process? I have no idea how to answer that. I'm just asking honestly. And if somebody said, no, you're not going to get any type of a reaction from the public through this, would I still keep doing it? Going back to the Gillian Welch, everything is free. It doesn't matter what you pay these people, or if you don't even pay them, they're going to do it anyway. Because artists of certain ilks, that's how they survive. They have to keep creating. They have to keep doing stuff like this to train themselves and get better at their craft. So it is the everything is free philosophy. I never minded working hard. It's who I'm working for. And the other line in that I was just talking about, that they'll do it anyway, whether you pay them or not, whatever that lyric is. I always go back to that song because it's from 2000, early 2000s. I don't know when she actually wrote it, but it explains the digital life of music, especially, and how the whole artistic industry changed because of digital technology, streaming culture, and I guess it's still going on. It's still hard to make a living, even if you're an established artist. You already went through what I'm trying to do. You already went through the door. Everything is free now. That's what they say. Everything I've ever done, gonna give it away. Someone hit the big score. They figured it out that we're going to do it anyway, even if it doesn't pay. Yeah, it's a sad lyric. Like, what if this was baseball players and they're about to go on strike, I think next year, for whatever fucking reason. Like, would baseball players play for free? Would football players? Fuck no. Football players were about to quit because they can't get guaranteed contracts. And I agree with that. You're putting your body on the line, even if you're making $20 million. Like, do you want to be in your 30s with no knees left? Your body's all fucked up. You might have brain damage because of your concussions. Yeah, it's a tough. It's a tough thing to think about, especially college athletics. I think that was discussed in the early 2000s too, because it is kind of a weird industry. They're making millions of dollars. Coaches are making millions, and the kids that are actually bringing in the crowd, bringing in the commercial money and all this shit. College football, especially, I guess, but even basketball, baseball to some degree. And yeah, the kids don't get paid shit. And they're the ones putting their body on the line. There was a kid in Penn State who actually got paralyzed from playing college football. I think he became like I don't know, something in Pennsylvania State House, maybe a congressman or something. Yeah, it's a risk, I guess. I guess you just accept that risk. You get a free education, but I don't know if that's a fair deal, really. You can't even make money if people make your likeness on a video game or make a jersey out of your name or your number and sell it to people. Like, I don't think that's fair, really. Like, people are making money off of these people, and they're adults. They're 18 to 21 years old. It's not like they're Olympic athletes that are required to be amateurs and not make money, besides like sponsorships. But, all right, I'm rambling too much. I'm going to come back to later today and read the rest of this. There's about 25 pages left, and I'll see where else my stream of consciousness goes at that point. But be prepared for more of my terrible singing, because there's 3 more songs to get through as we follow Man and Deer and see where they end up in Atlantic City. Again, I'm not trying to shit on Atlantic City, man. I've been there dozens of times in my life by myself or with other people, and it's not a bad place. I make it seem like Atlantic City is like the filthiest place in this screenplay and 2 other ones in this season too. I just needed to pick a place with casinos, and whether you call this place Atlantic City or something else, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing in this story that's intrinsically connected to Atlantic City or Atlantic City politics or Atlantic City as an experiment. You look at it before the casinos and after the casinos and see how the city changed and all that shit. But yeah, again, I'm not trying to shit on it. Atlantic City, like any other place, it goes up and down, up and down. It's got bad things, good things. And yeah, I'm not the right person to investigate. If you really want to learn more about that, go on YouTube and look for that documentary that kind of explored when casino gambling first became legal in the 80s. and the different responses that people had. And if you look at it today, well, I kind of think that casinos in Atlantic City took a shit because of Philadelphia. As other cities are building casinos, especially Philadelphia, people don't have to go there anymore. So, yeah, regardless, that's a different topic. But I don't know what it's like down there. I haven't been down the Jersey Shore in probably a decade, or longer. I don't even remember the last time. So, I'm not the right person to speak on this. But when we return to part two, yeah, we'll get deeper into this story, and it gets a bit more absurd as we finish Man's story here and look at where Deer ends up and their connection together. And yeah, so stay tuned for that.